the town where the jazz is swinging high. It's the New Orleans Outsider with Chris Goff, my oh my. We may be outsiders, but our love for New Orleans is true. So come along as I share it all with you. Sights and sounds, food and drinks. We're here to take a ride with New Orleans Outsider as our guide.
And here are your hosts, Chris Goff, Peter Newkirch, and Justin Appleberry.
Well, New Orleans is a party town, and St. Patrick's Day is no exception when you're down there. It is a crazy week and a half of events if you take it all in. Welcome to NOLA Outsider. I am Chris, along with Justin and Peter, and we are here to talk about something that I just got to be a part of just a few days ago, St. Patrick's Day, or St. Patrick's week and a half in New Orleans. And guys, I know I've told you both sort of the cliff notes of my trip down there, but it seems like every year I go down there for St. Patrick's Day, which, by the way, my wife says is her favorite time to go down there now. It's her favorite weekend to go. I think it's because the crowds are less. It's just a bunch of locals. But, when I go down there, I've learned a little bit more each year about the traditions and like how big St. Patrick's Day is celebrated in New Orleans. And Peter, I don't think Justin's been there, but let's start with you, Peter. Have you ever been there for any of the St. Patrick's Day stuff?
Not St. Patrick's Day.
Yeah.
I did Halloween.
So did you do Halloween? So of course, we'll get to it. The Molly's at the Market Limo Pub Crawl. They used to have a Halloween parade too. Did you do that one?
I believe that's the one we did.
Yeah. Okay. They don't do that anymore, unfortunately. But yes. So obviously, we're all three aware of Molly's at the Market, which is a big part of the St. Patrick's Day events in New Orleans. But what about you, Justin? I've told you about it, but I know you haven't been there for it yet.
Yeah, I've never been there for St. Patrick's Day, and it's interesting because when you think of New Orleans, you have the French influence, you have the Italian influence, you certainly have Mardi Gras, you think of parades. But the one thing that I never really thought about when you go to New Orleans is St. Patrick's Day and that sort of Irish influence with it.
Yeah, no, and it's true. I guess I just always, when I think of, when you're an outsider and you think of New Orleans, you think obviously Mardi Gras number one.
Right.
Then you start learning about the bigger festivals like Jazz Fest, French Quarter Fest, and Halloween's always a big. Anything where people can dress up, of course, is going to be a big deal in New Orleans in some form or fashion. There's always a festival going on, but yeah, like when I first started going down there, I had no clue that we have in Kansas City, we have Snake Saturday Parade, we have the St. Patrick's Day Parade. There's some in Martin City now. There's some in Kansas City, but so I just figured, New Orleans is just another major town in America that has this kind of stuff. But when you go down there, you see that they are really proud of their Irish heritage down there. There's a huge influence, and it is a multi-day event down there. Peter, I know you're very well educated on the sort of the breakdown of the history of the cultures that have influenced New Orleans through the years. Did you know about the Irish level down there?
I did not. I had no idea that they had their own historical neighborhood down there.
Yeah, which is called the Irish Channel.
Where's that at?
No clue.
The Irish Channel is it's so basically Irish Channel is sort of it's in the Garden District, and so it's obviously like to those in Missouri and St. Louis, Peter, it's like on the hill, right? The Italian section near the hill, or in Kansas City, of course, there's different neighborhoods around here as well. But the Irish Channel, which obviously sounds like a body of water, but it is really just an area that the Irish culture sort of is celebrated more than normal down in New Orleans. So yeah, I figured you might have known that, Peter. I didn't know.
No idea. Yeah, St. Louis has an old Irish neighborhood called Dogtown, and they're Hibernians. They're a little more intense. And then of course Chicago, most of the South Side is Irish.
Right.
Yeah. And I think every major town in America has some kind of Irish influence, it seems like. Of course, we know Boston. You think of Boston. You think of the Northeast, Boston. But you don't really think of New Orleans. So the Irish Channel's one. Of course, if you really think about it, you guys both know Molly's at the Market, but there's a bevy of like Irish bars down there, which more so than like, let's say, obviously here in Kansas City. Plenty of parades we'll get to. I did think it was interesting, the Irish influence in the New Orleans labor force. If you read about it, starting in the 19th century, many Irish immigrants worked as dock workers, laborers, and in construction, and they helped build a lot of the city's infrastructure, including the New Orleans Canal and the levee system. So, there's a ton. And of course, Peter,
What I found shocking about all that?
What?
Is that in every other city, they were usually bankers and doctors. I just find that shocking that in that city, they were all dock workers.
They were the laborers. Yeah.
Yeah. That
does go against the trends, right?
Unusual.
Yeah.
Next thing you're going to do is tell us that they were all Catholic.
I was going to say, that turns right into Catholicism, Peter, because it's big down there. And you being a Catholic yourself, you've actually attended church down there. I mean, you know all about it. So, that's a big thing down there.
Yes. Yeah.
I always just thought that was from the Italian influence, though. I didn't realize that it was from the Irish.
Well, I think it draws from many sections, obviously,
sure.
But the Irish. But to get back to the major point that you brought up, Justin, is that the Irish culture down there is heavily celebrated. Which, I mean, we can get to the events. I mean, let me just say, this past week I just got back. I'm about dried out from the trip. And the week of events down there just this week, and it changes, of course, because the day of the week that St. Patrick's Day is a different day every year, of course. But it starts the first major event that I know of that we always partake in is the Friday before St. Patrick's Day is the Molly's at the Market limo. So this year was the 43rd annual. I've been doing it for, I think this is our 4th year. And once again, our great friend Travis and Sarah, they got us to go down there, and they did it the first time. And Travis is he's got a very nice kilt. I bought mine at like the Kilts R Us store for like $20, but his is like $1,000, Peter. It's like he has like a full regalia.
The tartan's correct, and he went all out. He's got all the accoutrement that goes with it also.
He does, and I know a couple guys down there that could give him a run for his money, because they had every single kind of weapon hidden in every crevice. They have the sporran, they had everything on, and every different day they would have a different Irish shirt with a different sash. They had it all decked out, and it's amazing how these people every day of the week, it's like going to I don't know, it's like counting down to Christmas. Like every day's different, every new outfit every day. But when you go to Molly's at the Market for this pub crawl, which Molly's at the Market used to have a parade, and we've talked about this before, and we'll talk about it a lot more on this podcast and through the weeks. But parades in New Orleans, when I started going there 10 years ago or whatever, were plentiful. You go down and you couldn't walk around without seeing a second line. You could not. There was always a parade for something. And especially the big parades that would happen in the French Quarter was this Irish parade, St. Patrick's Day parade, and the Halloween parade, both out of Molly's at the Market, which have been doing it for years. So this limo pub crawl is not 43 years as the limo pub crawl. It's the 43 years of their parade. Plus, then they had to transition into just paying separately for a limo pub crawl, because the local government down there, for whatever the hell reason, doesn't want them to have a bunch of parades anymore, which that's what the whole damn town's about. I mean, it's crazy.
That makes sense. That makes sense.
Yeah, wasn't that fairly recent where they added in a lot of bureaucracy to get the permits?
Yes.
Yeah.
So they told me
you just went in, paid your money, told them the route and the day and the time, and that was it.
Yes, they told me. So basically, Peter, and you know how it is being a cop. Like if you're gonna do like parade patrol or a duty or whatever, right? Don't you have to have, like, if I want one in Kansas City, I don't know if it's possible, but if I could pay for a permit, I assume, and then I have to pay for a certain number of off-duty officers or whatever to sort of be security for it. Do they have anything like that in Kansas City?
Would be city stuff, but that sounds pretty much right. I mean, they just want to. I think they would generally just want to make sure there's nothing that's going to conflict with it, and that you have the whatever they account for as far as security and probably bathrooms.
Sure.
So Chris, was there an issue on why they decided to make it harder to have parades down there? I mean, it's like, hey guys, everybody loves a parade in New Orleans, so let's make it harder.
For all I can tell is that it was just a money grab, and not everybody wants to play ball on it now. And I'm hoping at some point, because the current mayor is, I believe, terming out here soon. So I'm hoping that they go back to making it, I don't know, look, I don't live there. Maybe it's annoying. Maybe there's too much garbage to pick up. Maybe it's too easy to get it before. I don't know, because I mean there are days when I'm down there with Peter where I would leave. There'd be second lines in different parades like every hour, and it was just amazing. You could just jump in line. But now, so to give you an example, and these are not straight up numbers, but like I was talking with not the people that actually put on the Molly's parade, but people who sort of were sort of spitballing how much this cost them this time. So just to have this limo pub crawl, they thought was probably around, and again, this is not official, $5,000 to $6,000 just to have the pub crawl like okayed to have this, to go down the streets and sort of block off traffic for it. And that is not including, I mean, I saw at least 7 or 8 cops on motorcycles that had to be patrolling this with them. So then you're paying them, I don't know, $50 an hour, maybe more. I don't know what it is. So it's a considerable amount of money, which is why when I first went to the Molly's at the Market Limo pub crawl, I think it was $135 or $150 a person. And coming from Kansas City, going down there, and I'm like, oh, that's great. Do I get a bunch of alcohol for that? No, you get nothing. You get the right to be in the parade. I'm like, what? That's so expensive.
Yeah.
But I quickly learned that I had a great time, and I would pay like a lot more than that probably to be involved. But but this year it was $175 a person on the early bird, and it was $200 if you got it day of or whatever. And they capped it. They said they had their biggest parade they'd had since like 2008 or whatever, with 150 people. They capped it at. So they're making money. They have to pay for certain things. You get food. They cater lunch for you, stuff like that. But it's a considerable, when you have parades down there now, it is a considerable expense. It is.
Well, and for everyone who's never been down there to see one, whether you've been down there and just haven't somehow managed to see a parade, which you're right, they're much more rare now, or just people who have not been down there at all. There's a big difference between the St. Patrick's Day parade, the Halloween parade, Crew de Vue, any of those parades, and having a second line, which it still all fell under the same thing originally as far as how the city charged. And that's why everybody who got married or had a funeral or anything else would have a second line. They just wiped all that out. You don't see the second lines at all anymore.
Yeah. Wow. I mean, if it is, like, I saw a couple second lines this past week, and I was like, wow, it's like I had to turn and look out the street because this is like a rarity now. I mean, look, I go down, and we all go down in like little short spurts. So it's not like I'm there for weeks at a time to see this, but in just my sampling of going down there over the years, it is definitely it has been thinned out tremendously. And so I feel like when I see a second line, and it's basically, a middle-sized brass band, and then, it's the wedding with the handkerchiefs out, and you see them all flying in the air.
Right.
And that's what I see. But again, I used to see, I don't know, minimum half dozen a day. And I see maybe one a day, if I see that.
Yeah, and I know the crews, show up now just randomly and stuff. Of course, there's that one time, and I know I don't remember what we were down there for. I know it was not a holiday, but I just randomly came across the Chewbacca's crew was just having their own parade, and that was like a Thursday night. There was nothing going on. If I hadn't just been wandering back to meet up with you guys, never would have even seen it.
Justin, you would have loved that because everyone was dressed in Star Wars. So you would have loved it.
Yes. I'd have just joined right in. You'd never see me again. That was good.
And we did. We all ended up in the parade with them. That was perfect. I mean, you can't do better than Star Wars and Bacchanalian culture mixed together. So drunk Star Wars characters is just as good as you get.
People were dressed up as X-Fighters. It was hilarious. It was funny. But
so I always pack my Han Solo costume with me anywhere I go, so I can just put that on and join right in. I've been good.
That's good.
Yeah. Always be ready.
Always be ready.
Yeah.
Our friend Travis already looked like a tauntaun, so he fit in. But the rest of us just sort of walked behind. But you're right. The parades are all over the board, and again, like any parade in New Orleans is better than any other parade I've seen, maybe outside of like a Thanksgiving Day parade or a Macy's Day parade or whatever. But, so the pub crawl is cool. And if you ever want to do that, they start putting tickets on sale for that sometime in like January or February. And, we always get them now. And it's fun because I've told you guys, it's not just the fun of going to, it's usually about 6 bars, but it's also the networking involved. I mean, we were there with the owner of the Boondock Saint, which is a bar down there that we really like. I mean, there's plenty of like cops and, politicians. There's a lot of people there. There's very few people like me that's a nobody. So I enjoy like, mooching off them and riding their coattails.
There you go.
So, I think that's the way to go up in the world, right? So it's fun, and you usually go to 6 different places. You start at Molly's at the Market. You end at Aaron Rose, which both back in the day historically were owned by this guy named Jim Monahan, who we'll talk about a lot over the weeks because he was a guy that owned a lot of bars and was a character in New Orleans. And to call yourself a character in New Orleans is pretty something because there's a lot of characters in New Orleans. So, but in the middle, they always switch it up. They go to some traditional Irish bars that, Finn McCool's is one that we always go to, but like 2 or 3 of them are always like new places every year. So it's always cool, because I always like that about the, both of you guys have been on the cocktail tours. I enjoy going on those when they switch it up and it's not just the typical, popular tourist attractions,
Yeah. I just always figured that all those Irish bars were down there because that would be what people would associate with a place to go drink. And no idea that there's, that much historical culture down there.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, Chris, when you're down there, so you're saying it's like a multi-day like celebration. It's not just the actual St. Patrick's Day parade. Walk me through what all the events are.
Okay, so the events on a typical week are, like I said, Friday is the Friday before St. Patrick's Day is always the Molly's at the Market limo pub crawl, and that's from basically 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. That's your go-to. That's your go-to. You're doing that every year. You're kicking it off, yeah.
Okay.
Saturday is always the Irish Channel St. Patrick's Day Parade, which this year was canceled due to the impending weather that we actually had in Kansas City as well. There was that storm that was basically all the way up and down on the, in the United States, but they canceled it. It sucked. But that is the one that was sort of in the Garden District over there in the Irish Channel. That's always the Saturday before. The Sunday before St. Patrick's Day is the Metairie Road St. Patrick's Day Parade that's in Metairie, Louisiana, which I actually got to go to this past Sunday. And man, what a parade that was. I mean, so many things to talk about. I mean, so Stacy and I met these 2 guys, and they're part of a crew, I found out, called the Irish. Now, the Irish Rogues split off from the Celtic Highlanders because there was more dues and more things happened. So it's like fraternal organizations, their crews, And Peter, correct me if I'm wrong, a crew is just a group of people that work under a specific name, like Crew of Blank or whatever, or Irish Rogues. And they basically are working on their float / ideas for the next parade a year in advance, basically.
Oh, at least, yeah. They're some friends of ours, our good friends Craig and Gregory, own a bar down there called La Cabaret down on North Rampart, and there's a crew that visits them regularly. And one of their conditions is they bring their own fog machine to make entrances into the bar, and that's everywhere they go.
Oh, the pro wrestler in me loves that. That's right
there. Crew de la Royale.
Okay.
Always will only make entrances with a fog machine. So yeah, that's every hilarious. Crew has its special thing.
Do they get entrance music as well?
I'm sure they do. I mean, how would you not have entrance music if you also have a fog machine?
You're right, though. I mean, that's how it is. Like, I mean, that's the level of these crews and the presentations of these parade floats, man. They're nothing you've seen at any other parade. I mean, like outside of the balloons on the Macy Day Parade or whatever, the amount of work they put in, like not just Mardi Gras, but now St. Patrick's Day is crazy. So the Metairie one, we met these these friends of ours, Marion and Martin, and they're Irish Rogues, and they have that. I've sent you guys a picture. They have these this military truck that they have purchased, and they have a matching trailer with it. And they just pimped it out with speakers, 2 bars, 4 taps, Irish whiskey everywhere, a nice bathroom with stained glass that he's constructed on the back. He's very proud of his bathroom, Marion. And we're standing. Did you see that picture?
Yeah, look at that picture right now.
Amazing.
We should post it on the Facebook page so that loyal listeners can take a look at that, because that's a lot of money they spent on that thing.
Yeah, if you look on Facebook.com and look up Irish Rogues in New Orleans, you'll find them. But they are the amount of work they put on that truck alone, and just what they do to get ready, prepared for all these parades, because they take part in the Irish Channel Parade. So first they ride with us on Molly's on the limo pub crawl. Then they take part in the Irish Channel Parade in the Irish Channel. Then they go to the Metairie Parade. They just sat and watched, but they're blasting music on this corner with everyone 20 feet from the parade route. And then they go to the St. Patrick's Day block party in the Garden District that is on St. Patrick's Day. Starts at like 10 a.m., goes to 8 p.m. It's basically, if you go to the Irish Channel, which we go to usually to the Quarter, we will go eat at Commander's Palace. We'll go eat, in other places around, the city, but we're mainly in the French Quarter. But if you go to the Irish Channel, there's two main bars down there that have been around forever, and they sort of built a friendly rivalry together, Parasols and Tracy's. And these two, they started their own sort of, block party, each of them, and it sort of grew to such a mass that it's all together now. And like people, they go into, everyone there sort of goes into each of them, gets their beer, gets their food, all that. And it is something that goes on from 10 to 8. And then if that's not enough, downtown Irish Club Parade is in the French Quarter, which I got to be a part of last year, not this year, because we left on Monday on St. Patrick's Day. But the one that's in the French Quarter is not nearly as long as the Metairie one. The Metairie one was like 160 floats. The one that's in the French Quarter, not that big, but it's at night. And the lights are all out. Like everyone's decked out and everyone's got flashing LEDs on or whatever. And it is super cool going down those narrow streets in the French Quarter to see that happen. And that is basically, so that happened on Monday because that's actually on St. Patrick's Day. You get the St. Patrick's Day block party in the Garden District and then that downtown parade. But I mean, that could be extended to like Wednesday. So you're talking Friday, the limo pub crawl, and you're going to Wednesday. So next year, these friends of ours are like, you need to come out and do all this stuff on St. Patrick's Day. So I'm like, so St. Patrick's Day in 2026 is on a Tuesday. So if you had to go down there for Molly's, you're there from like a Thursday to a Tuesday or a Wednesday, really. And that's a long time.
That's a lot of liver abuse.
That is.
It's a long time.
Walk us through what you all drank on Sunday.
Sunday. Well, that was the day
if you can.
Well, he's bringing this up because I don't like to mix, and that day was a bad mix.
Which is a smart idea always, and I appreciate and agree with you on.
Yeah. Well,
this is Peter. This is how I know that Chris had a good time because he was texting me the exact same thing like 3 or 4 times in a row.
Yeah. I can remember. I was like, did I already tell you guys this?
Yeah. He's like, I don't know if I mentioned this, but blah 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 blah.
Yeah. Well, it was a good time. So no, it was Saturday where we have hurricanes all day, which is great, and that's obviously made of rum. But then that night we met our friends out from the Irish Rogues, and we went to an Asian sushi place, I guess, that fusion place, but it was mainly sushi. And then they had just wine and beer, and I was like, I wanted to keep it going with the rum, but they didn't have it. So then Martin wanted to get some unfiltered sake. So then we had a couple bottles of that. Then we went back to Martin's girlfriend's place because she lives really close to where we stay in the Quarter there. And then he opened up a really nice bottle of wine, way nicer than I would buy. And we had some of that. And then I'm like sort of fading a little bit. And then for some reason, someone pulled out a flask of chartreuse, which I had never had in my life. And it's about the same color as absinthe. So I was a little scared. But it's very flavorful. Sort of like I told someone, it sort of tastes like Malort. On that first taste of Malort is okay until you swallow and then you taste it for like 3 days. And chartreuse did not have that. Chartreuse, I think, is more like, Peter, you said it's more like a mixer. It's not. It's an added ingredient. It's not a straight thing. But I took 2 shots.
You're the only person I know who has ever drank it straight.
What do you usually mix that with, Pete?
It's a French liqueur, so it goes in a lot of like classic cocktails. I've only ever known. I mean, it's important when it's supposed to be in a cocktail. It's very important for it to be there, but it's always a lesser ingredient, to kind of a backup ingredient to a lot of classic cocktails.
So, Goffer, how that sake taste chasing those?
That's a hell of a
rum.
mix.
I mean, that's something else. You go to hurricanes, and man, let's just do unfiltered sake.
You literally went around the world in alcohol.
Multicultural.
I was trying to be really inclusive that day, but well, I don't know. I don't really drink sake, Peter. I don't know if you do, Justin.
I don't think I've ever had it.
So Martin,
it's not on top of my list.
Yeah.
Martin is he fancies himself as a super taster, which I think is a food version of a sommelier. Have you heard of this, Peter?
Yes, yeah, it is an actual term. Yeah, it's just people who have more. I believe the actual definition is that they just have more taste buds than most
more
people.
Distinguished palate.
That's basically the way he described it. So he said, "Hey, I like the unfiltered sake because there's more flavor in it. Of course, it looks very cloudy, but if you've had sake, you pour it in a little white shot glass that they give you at the Asian place, and you just drink it down. So it went down easy. It was fine. There was not a lot of choice. So." I wasn't going to go to beer. I'm not a beer guy. So although on their the Irish Rogues on their truck, he had a Guinness and Stella on tap on both of his trucks there.
Nice.
And so when in Rome, I did Guinness. But
you got to have a Guinness.
You have to on old St. Patrick's Day. But something that I don't know if you guys have ever heard of this, but the lore in New Orleans for St. Patrick's Day is on not just the Irish Channel Parade, but the Metairie Road Parade is that they throw obviously let me set the stage. It was 4.5 hours long, this parade, and 160 floats. The route is somewhere between 2 and 3 miles. And so there's so many things going past you. And so everyone that's on the parade route, which is, the place is packed, but it's all locals, So when you go to the quarter, it's not overwhelmingly busy like it would be on French Quarter Fest or Jazz Fest. It's just all the locals from the surrounding area come and partake in this. So when you go there, everyone has a laundry basket with them because they know they're going to get so many throws, lanyap, whatever you want to call it, in this parade that they're going to have to carry it home in this huge, container.
Good Lord.
And so we've all been to the parades. You get candy, you get some beads down there, whatever. But this was beads. I came home with a bunch of stuffed animals, shamrocks, some footballs, a ton of beads, cups, all this. But they also throw in these parades produce. Okay, so this is apparently what I found out is the history of this is back in the day on these parades they would throw out cabbage. So let me tell you what we'd find: whole heads of cabbage. Little Brussels sprouts, garlic, cloves, green peppers, onions, red potatoes, huge carrots, lemons, oranges, package of ramen noodles, weird stuff, right? And they're throwing this all out, and people are collecting it. And what's funny is we were only about, maybe as a crow flies, 30 feet from these people throwing these things. And we're all their parade, wave your hands, throw it here, throw it here. So then every dude that's just winging it like a golf ball, these lemons, nailed my wife in the head, right? But then then they start catching it. Then they play this game catch that. Okay, here's another one. Here's another one. And it's you get hurt with some of these things, really, to be honest with you. But as one of the ladies with me said, I would never eat any food that I was given on a parade route. So, and that's probably and I understood that. But I guess that's
I'd take that back to the hotel and cook that shit up, boy.
Well, what the point is that you're supposed to do back in the day is you take everything you collect and you go make a stew out of it and you eat that, and the rest of the year will be you're supposed to have a very lucky, good luck year. Okay, that's what it's about. So I guess it's the equivalent of eating black-eyed peas on New Year's Eve or whatever.
New Year's Eve, yeah.
My buddy that's from Crowley, which is west of Lafayette.
Yeah,
they do the country parades out there, and that's the tradition is to throw the food from the floats. Well, they're not floats; they're really just trailers out there.
Huh.
But yeah,
I've never heard of that.
I had neither. So we obviously don't do that around these parts. But
we're throwing out barbecue.
Yeah.
There's a rib.
Great.
Enjoy that.
That'd be way better than onion. But so that was great. I guess the point of all this, talking about this today, is just when you go down there for St. Patrick's Day, it's no fooling. I mean, if you, I mean, to see the amount of work that these people and these crews put together, and how much time and effort they put into, it costs a lot of money for these things too. I mean, like, just for my bar, I bought like throws for Gumbo Fest or Mardi Gras or whatever, just to have fun when people came to the bar. And it's like, it's not cheap. I mean, they're throwing it for 3 miles, and they're not just throwing one out; they're throwing bags of these things out. And, it's funny, if you're down there around these parade routes, a lot of these like grocery stores have sort of like those things where they like drop off your clothes, if you don't want clothes anymore, those little big metal bins you have outside of grocery stores. They have put your throws in here. They have those in New Orleans.
Wow.
Because, I mean, what are you going to do with all this junk? It's awesome to collect it while you're there, but I'm like, I have too much crap now at my house now. So,
right. I remember when we did the Halloween one and we were on the float, there was just boxes and boxes of beads piled up in the middle of the float.
Yeah.
I mean, probably 10, 15 boxes. And then they restocked it at one point. I remember that also. Jeez. On the Halloween one.
Well, that was one of the great things about being in a parade in New Orleans, is that if you paid, I think that was another thing. It was like $125, $150 a person. You don't get any drinks, but you ride on the float, and they provide boxes of beads to throw. I mean, like boxes and boxes of beads. So you don't have to pay for any of that. And so you're in the middle of it. I mean, the Halloween parade that was at Molly's that you were at, Peter, those are great. I mean, because you get a little tipsy, you get on there, and then you're going through the French Quarter, and there is a ton of people around, and it's just cool to be on that side of the fence.
Yeah, that'd be really a different perspective. Yeah, sure would.
Yeah, and it's something very unique to Kansas, or very unique to New Orleans, and I really do hope that the city figures out how to bring that back, because if you want to drop, you're going to drop a couple $100 per person, but it's an absolutely unique experience that you can only have down there, and it doesn't matter what the weather is, it doesn't matter which parade it is. I mean, you're going to have your favorites, but it's just super fun.
So Goff, let me ask you this.
Yeah.
So you start off with the Hurricanes. You go to the sake.
Sure.
You go to the nice wine, and then you finish with the drink that can't even probably properly pronounce. Did you then do the famous Irish goodbye after that?
That would be a great way to leave the night on.
That'd be perfect. Yeah.
I've had many Irish goodbyes that I give to people through my life.
I love the Irish goodbye.
It is. People that you give the Irish goodbye to do not like it, though, because they're like, "Hey, Dick, where were you last night?" I'm like, "Well, it was time for me to go home," But no, I did not do that. If the Irish goodbye has a new meaning of go back to my hotel, lay down on my bed, the room starts spinning, and I fall asleep in 5 seconds, that I did have an Irish goodbye.
So, you had to put the foot on the floor. One foot on the floor. See the spin, yeah.
But I don't know, guys. I honestly, you both, like I said, my wife, when we were coming home, she's like, she loves going down there whenever, but she thinks that this is her favorite time to go. And I think you guys should go sometime just with your wives, because it's a fun time to go, because you wouldn't expect what I'm telling you about. And it's also not, I think we're all in the age and sort of of not being down there when it's incredibly busy. And it's not.
Well, sounds like me and Pete missed one hell of a party, man.
Yeah.
You did. And I mean, next year, like I said, a couple of our friends like Richard Scott, he lives in Metairie. The cops that have the Irish Rogues, they live in Metairie area. And that parade itself is like Metairie, if you haven't been there, to me, to a Kansas City person, is like Blue Springs or something to me, like Overland Park even. It's very much like 15 minutes is all a drive from the French Quarter, but it's just like a normal, when you're in the French Quarter down there, and that's sort of your perspective on New Orleans, like right by the river, when you drive to a suburb, it's so weird, because you're like, this is just like where I'm from,
It's like a normal town then, yeah.
Yeah, which just goes on to prove like how insanely unique and great the French Quarter is, and that's why it's so hard for me to leave. Even though the Garden District is beautiful and it has like tremendous architecture and housing and all that stuff, it just doesn't, for what I like to do at this point in my life, it's just not something I need to see very often. But the French Quarter is just unbelievable, unique situation setting. So
it is a big deal for you to leave the quarter.
it is. Hey, we've gone. The problem is when you leave the quarter, you need a Uber. And much like we went and had a nice meal at that one place,
Yes.
and we'll talk about Brightson's. And Brightson's is a very good restaurant, and I'm glad I went there because I'd heard about Brightson's forever. But it's a $50 to $60 round trip Uber ride for everyone involved. So I feel bad making people do that. I do.
Oh, it's
Yeah, it is not a cheap city for Uber for sure.
This time I didn't really, the only meal I had that was really a sit down big meal. I did have some crawfish, which the crawfish at French Market this time were like, smaller than my pinky. It seemed they were very small. Really? Yeah. I guess they were field run. I don't know, but I'm hoping they get a little bit bigger for our crawfish boil at the end.
That's coming up. Yeah.
We're a month out.
Yeah. But then I also went to the GW Fins, and I sent that both. I told you both that I had to have that Parmesan crusted sheep's head.
That's your go-to.
That's
the go-to.
It's a great place. It's one of the few places you can get it, and I understand why you get it. I just was challenging to try something different. That's all.
And see, that's what Peter's good at. Peter's good at challenging to get me to try thalamus and sweetbreads. So that's
Yeah,
nothing wrong with some
suggested
sweetbreads.
the tempura snapper breast and the cobia or the swordfish bolognese. That's the one I thought was sounded very interesting.
Oh, look, you can't go wrong there. Anything I get at GW Fins is good. But yeah, I was craving the sheep's head. I had to try that. But Justin, I did hear you say you would try sweetbread. There's nothing wrong with sweetbread, so I can't wait to have you try those next time.
Absolutely.
Because, Okay.
They're coming back around right now. There's a couple of restaurants here that got them on the menu right now.
Oh,
I had them 2 weeks ago.
Oh, it's like a little sugar, little pastry. What is that?
Yes, that's exactly what it is.
You believe in that.
Yeah, Peter, why don't you walk us through what those are?
It's part of the brainstem. It's
and the pancreas, right?
Yeah,
pancreas and brainstem,
and the thalamus. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, who doesn't like some random organ meat? It's so good that they couldn't call it thalamus. They had to rename it sweetbread. So you might actually think of something else when you're eating it.
I mean, that's marketing 101 right there.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
It is. But, well, anyway, guys, if you are not in New Orleans and you want a good time to go down there and check out something unique, that is something that I think, like we've been discussing, is sort of off the radar. You should go down there and check out the St. Patrick's Day weekend or week, because there's so many things to do down there. I highly suggest doing the Molly's Limo pub crawl because it is fun. Molly's is a well-known Irish bar down there. It's been around there for 50 years. Started by Jim Monahan, still owned by the family, and we have friends that are involved with that bar that live in Kansas City, and that is always a fun time. Get yourself a frozen Irish coffee. Everybody likes them there, and have a good time with not just that, but any of these parades. They're free. You don't have to pay to be in them. You can pay. I mean, there's still parades you can be, like we've been talking about. You can pay to be in some of these parades, and usually it costs somewhere between $150 to $200. And, the Irish Channel Parade, I think if you go on their website, that just got rescheduled to March 29th of this year. But it's funny. I feel like they reschedule these things and sort of easily, cut them so they can just spread it out longer. So they have a longer season. So all these guys, the crew guys, the Irish Rogues, are going to be able to celebrate that, in another week. So it's not completely shut down for the year. But it is a fun time, and you should check it out. Like I said, check out the Irish Rogues on Facebook. Also, Molly's at the Market has their own website as well. And I don't know, guys. Like I said, you both need to go down there with your time. I think you'll both thoroughly enjoy it, because I know we've all been there in different iterations of Halloween and the parades there. And I know, Justin, when you went, even though that was your first time and you wore your snazzy little pumpkin suit that you had,
Mr. Pumpkin.
That was when our friend was there for 2 minutes and had to be escorted back to his house. So that sort of ruined everything. But I don't want to name names, Travis. But anyway, you weren't there for the actual parade or the crawl. So you need to go down. I suggest on a time where you wouldn't think it would be great. St. Patrick's Day and that time is great.
Yeah, a little hidden gem.
I think we're in for
hidden
next
gem
year.
there. Yeah, I think we
Yeah.
are too, Pete.
Yeah.
I think that's something we'll do.
No, it is. And for everybody out there, it's like I said, check it out. They're planning this all year. It's coming on the heels of Mardi Gras. So it's not, Mardi Gras is such a big deal. Everybody knows about Mardi Gras down there. So this to me, where people are usually taking a breather from actually traveling and doing that stuff down there. That's why I think this gets a little bit more local and not crazy. So anyway, thanks for joining us on this week's episode of NOLA Outsider. I think next week we'll probably go back to our thing of going to a singular place. It's going to be probably Commander's Palace. I think that'd be a fun one to do. We all three are foodies. We all three enjoy going to New Orleans for unique meals that you can only get there. And Peter, I know that you being a chef, you understand the lineage of that restaurant, just not only in America or New Orleans, but around the world.
Yes. Yeah.
I mean, it has spit out the Emeralds, the Paul Prud'hommes, and everyone. And, Meg there now is also keeping it alive and awesome. So, and Strider, I know that you're a foodie now, more so than ever. And did you have the quail last time?
No, I have not.
Quail.
No, I have not.
Lacquered quail.
Yeah, I've not had the quail there yet. I think you gave me a bite of yours. I think when we were there with you. In November. Yeah.
There's not a lot of bites on that quail, so that was pretty nice of me. But
that's very nice. Well, you're a generous man. Kind and generous.
Well, anyway, we'll get to Commander's Palace on the next episode. But thanks for listening. Check us out on any place you can find a podcast. Tell your friends. We want to get some ratings on our podcast so we can continue to grow the audience. I think our Facebook page is over a whopping, I believe, 200 guys. I mean, it is growing. It is.
Everybody starts somewhere.
We put a seed into the ground and it is breaking through the dirt. So thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time on NOLA Outsider.
Thanks for listening to the NOLA Outsider podcast. We'd love to hear about your experiences in the greatest city in the world. Email us at outsidernola@gmail.com. Also, check us out on Facebook at facebook.com/NOLA Outsider or visit NOLAOutsider.com. See you next time on NOLA Outsider.